Iran wants its money back. Washington wants to use it to rebuild the damage. A fragile ceasefire is holding barely. Missiles have crossed borders, drones have targeted shipping lanes, and now billions of dollars sit at the center of the next confrontation. As peace talks stall, the battle over Iran's assets is becoming a battle over who pays for the war. The United States is considering redirecting Iranian assets to help rebuild Gulf states damaged during the recent conflict. Reuters has reported that U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has ordered an assessment of reconstruction costs in countries affected by Iranian missile and drone attacks, including Kuwait and Bahrain. The source said Washington is examining whether Iranian assets could be used to pay for both existing and future damage caused by Tehran's military actions. The proposal emerged just one day after a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader warned that negotiations with the United States had reached a deadlock over access to frozen Iranian funds. Mohsen Rezai, a military advisor to Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, told CNN that any peace agreement depends on Washington releasing $24 billion in Iranian assets. Iran is reportedly seeking the release of $12 billion immediately after an interim agreement is signed and another $12 billion at a later stage.
If he wants to reach an agreement with Iran, this $24 billion is a test of trust that Iran wants to have with Trump. This is a test that America must pass, and the path will be opened. This is our own money, not America's money.
The dispute threatens to complicate already fragile negotiations aimed at ending more than 3 months of conflict between Iran, the United States, and Israel. Fighting continued over the weekend despite ceasefire efforts. U.S. forces struck Iranian radar sites at Goruk and Keshm Island in the Strait of Hormuz after intercepting Iranian drones that American officials said posed a threat to maritime traffic. The U.S. military later reported shooting down 2 additional attack drones near the strategic waterway. Iran's Revolutionary Guard responded by claiming responsibility for missile attacks against American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. Kuwait's military said 7 ballistic missiles crossed over residential areas, causing property damage but no casualties. In Bahrain, warning sirens sounded and residents were instructed to seek shelter. Iran later said it had successfully targeted U.S. facilities in both countries, although American officials said most incoming missiles were intercepted. Rizi warned that a collapse of diplomacy could trigger a broader regional conflict extending far beyond the Persian Gulf.
We will give another dimension to the war by attacking these other American bases that we have been attacking so far.
Rizi said any renewed conflict could expand into the Indian Ocean, the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean Sea. The standoff now centers on a simple question with potentially enormous consequences: whether billions of dollars in Iranian assets will be returned to Tehran as part of a peace agreement, or redirected by Washington to help repair the damage left behind by the war. Missiles launched, drones unleashed, warships changing course in one of the world's most volatile waterways. Then a flood of claims, denials, and warnings of even bigger weapons waiting over the horizon. Something happened in the Gulf of Oman, and Iran and America are telling radically different stories about what unfolded. Tensions in the Gulf of Oman are once again making headlines after Iran and the United States offered sharply conflicting accounts of a reported maritime confrontation. Tehran says its navy forced American warships to withdraw. Washington says no such incident took place. Iranian state media has reported that the Iranian Navy fired warning missiles and drones at U.S. warships operating in the Gulf of Oman, accusing the U.S. Navy of harassing maritime traffic and seizing commercial vessels and oil tankers. According to Iranian reports, the Iranian Navy used Qadir missiles and newly introduced Shahid Dana, attack drones to issue warning shots at two US Navy destroyers, identified as DDG-103 and DDG-87.
Iranian authorities claimed that following the incident, the destroyers left the Sea of Oman and moved towards the Indian Ocean. The amphibious assault helicopter carrier USS Tripoli was forced to leave the area.
The IRGC warned that although what it described as enemy vessels had moved beyond the range of the missiles used in the operation, longer-range missiles remain available and could be employed if necessary. Meanwhile, the IRGC Navy has issued a warning to American ships operating in waters near Iran.
If they carry essential cargo such as fuel or food, they must notify Iran, which will then take responsibility for their security and schedule their passage through the Strait of Hormuz.
State television further claimed that satellite imagery showed what it described as the dispersal of the terrorist US fleet, following what Iranian officials called a decisive naval response. The claims come amid continuing tensions over maritime security in waters surrounding Iran, where disputes over sanctions enforcement and commercial shipping have repeatedly raised the risk of confrontation. The operation took place as Washington continues to enforce sanctions targeting Iranian oil shipments and related maritime activity. However, the US military has strongly rejected the Iranian claims. US Central Command dismissed the Iranian claims and stated that no attack or warning fire had taken place against American naval vessels.
Claim. Iran claims it fired warning shots at US warships in the Gulf of Oman, forcing American vessels to retreat toward the Indian Ocean. False. Truth. Iranian forces did not attack or fire at US Navy warships. Doing so would be a gross violation of the ceasefire. US forces continue to operate freely in regional waters while fully enforcing the ongoing blockade against Iran.
The competing narratives highlight the deep mistrust that continues to define relations between Tehran and Washington. The incident also comes at a time of heightened scrutiny over maritime activity around Iran, particularly as the United States maintains pressure on Iranian oil exports, and Tehran continues to issue warnings regarding shipping routes near the Strait of Hormuz. For now, the two sides remain locked in a battle of competing claims, with Iran describing a naval retreat and the United States categorically denying that any confrontation took place. A new dispute has erupted between Iran and the United States over military operations in the Gulf, with both sides issuing sharply conflicting accounts of recent attacks in the Sea of Oman and Kuwait. On June 3rd, the Iranian army announced that its navy had targeted what it described as a US command and control center aboard an American destroyer operating in the Sea of Oman. According to a statement released by the Iranian Army's Public Relations Office, the operation was carried out after Tehran accused the US military of violating regulations governing the Strait of Hormuz and targeting Iranian commercial vessels.
A few hours ago, following aggressive actions, violations of the regulations governing the Strait of Hormuz, and hostile acts against Iranian commercial vessels in the Sea of Oman by the terrorist and aggressive US military, the Navy, immediately upon detecting and identifying the source of those actions, targeted the command and control center responsible for them.
Iran further claimed that the targeted facility was located aboard a US destroyer approaching Iranian waters.
The targeted command center was located aboard a US destroyer that was preparing to approach Iranian territorial waters in the Sea of Oman. The Navy is closely monitoring the criminal and aggressive American Zionist enemy and will continue responding to hostile actions. The Navy will respond to any hostile act in the shortest possible time.
The US military swiftly rejected the claim. In a statement, US Central Command said no American naval assets had been disrupted and accused Tehran of spreading false information.
Iran is now claiming it has targeted a US Navy destroyer in the Gulf of Oman. Iran is lying. U.S. military assets at sea continue to fly, sail, and operate safely and unimpeded.
The exchange comes amid a parallel dispute over damage to Kuwait International Airport following recent Iranian missile and drone attacks in the region. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps denied responsibility for damage to the airport's passenger terminal, instead blaming American air defense systems. Brigadier General Hossein Mohebi, spokesman and deputy for public relations for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, referred to the destruction of the Kuwait airport and said,
Our investigation and research into the Kuwait airport passenger terminal showed that the IRGC airspace did not fire any shots at this target. The destruction of the Kuwait airport passenger terminal was caused by an error in the American Patriot systems that landed on the terminal after failing to intercept Iranian missiles.
CENTCOM rejected that explanation too and accused Iran of deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure.
Iran claimed today that it did not attack the passenger terminal at Kuwait International Airport, and damage was instead caused by a U.S. missile interceptor. Totally false. Iran struck the civilian airport with drones in a deliberate, calculated, and unjustified attack.
The competing narratives underscore the rapidly escalating information and military confrontation unfolding across the Gulf region. While Iran says it is defending its commercial shipping and enforcing new regulations through its recently established Persian Gulf Strait Authority, the United States maintains that its forces continue operating normally and that Iranian attacks are increasingly targeting regional infrastructure. Neither side has provided independent evidence publicly verifying its claims, leaving the latest incidents at the center of an intensifying US-Iran confrontation stretching from the Strait of Hormuz to the wider Gulf.